13th, 2025, 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Nathan, would you like to announce about the equipment?
Council does not have their monitors tonight. We had our AV company out here last week, and they couldn't figure it out, and they've not been back. So we had some pretty direct email exchanges back and forth today. They will be out tomorrow to hopefully get it fixed.
Not going to help us tonight.
Yeah. That was
So
communicated to them.
we have the screen moved, and I think, did you give Tanya and Joe so they didn't have to turn around? And Dan, can you see the screen? Or maybe you got an agenda. You got an agenda? Okay. All right. Any announcements other than that, Nathan? Yes, you do. You have the whole screen to look at. Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will begin this evening with the monthly reports of the standing committees. Chief, are you ready? Welcome back.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me back. First of all, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Always appreciate getting to come see you.
Same to you.
So several things. First of all, you got our fourth quarter or Q4 report from 2024. Really a couple things I'd like to point out from that report is that at this point, we're holding pretty steady on calls. Not a lot of change in the profile or the type or the mix of calls we've been running, which is good news. One of the things that I would point out in 2024 is that we reported a travel time which appeared to be much faster, but I want to, as much as I love taking credit for a good job, that also depends on where those calls are placed. And when you're talking, emergent fire travel times, and there's only 4 fires that you're talking about, those being close close proximity to the station really helped us out. So the overall here is that, the district as a whole saw an increase in call volume. Right now we're holding pretty steady. I would call 323 to 321 a wash statistically. So very happy with what we're seeing. Like I said, our metrics and our turnout times and travel times are looking good. And I'm happy to answer any questions on that specific report, and then I have a couple other things for you.
Any questions for the chief?
Okay. Just by way of sharing some information that I've gotten a lot of questions from residents over the last little bit here about things like, what's our water supply like? Are we going to have problems? Could we potentially have a problem like they're having in LA? And all these types of questions that come up, which are certainly, when you see big events like this happen in the news, there are things that concern anybody. It's a huge loss of property and lives out there that is stark and pretty crazy to see. So what I would say is that there are a lot of things that take place behind the scenes that I don't necessarily stand here and tell you all about every time I come see you. Water One does a really good job of building out and maintaining and upgrading our water system. We have one of the best water systems in the region, and we're scored well in our insurance services organization audits when we get those ratings because of the water system, which is a positive for us here in Johnson County. Another thing that I would say is that they do routine fire flow testing, things like that. So our system's tested. But when you're talking about the volume of fire that they're experiencing on the West Coast, no system is going to keep up with that. That's just, we're talking about a sheer volume that is outrunning the system. And so what I would say is a lot of the answers that I've been giving to residents is this. First of all, I kind of, it's certainly not a joking matter, but I kind of joke with lead with the response that, when I was a kid and I was growing up, and Smokey the Bear would always say, only you can prevent forest fires, right? Like, the truth is, the information is there. They've got huge fire loads. They're an arid environment. They haven't done the prevention that they probably could have done in those areas, and unfortunately, it's turning out to be a disastrous response. And so, from that standpoint, I'd say that in Johnson County, one of the things that we're blessed with is cities that do a good job of administering like tree programs and things like that. We don't let people's properties overgrow to the point that fire load is a problem. And the scaled response is something that we've built long ahead. And so, I was just talking to Councilmember Brofsky that in 2017 or 2018 in Overland Park, I don't know how many of you will remember this, but there was a fire that started at a apartment complex that was under construction, and it spread to 26 homes south of there because of the wind. We were able to quickly scale and generate a response, and I was there. I was a commander on a couple of the house fires. We generated a response that put out 26 house fires in that building fire in a short order because we scaled our response very quickly. And it happened not just in Johnson County, but we reached outside of Johnson County, and we got KCK and KCMO and other people that Lawrence sent resources. And that happened so fast, we were able to mitigate that problem really quickly. And so I guess what I wanted to share with you is that the coordination with emergency management, the coordination among fire and police and EMS in Johnson County is really not, it's something that I can't share with you enough how proud of it I am. I think that we do a lot for our residents, and some of that isn't known to all the city councils and all the residents because it happens behind the scenes. So those are things that that I wanted to share with you, that we do have scalable plans in place. Those plans go from everything from a regional situation to many of you are aware of the fact, and I know Nathan's aware of the fact that over the last couple of years, they've had different tabletop scenarios where we've taken people to the National Fire Academy and we've done huge disaster scenarios. So those actions and those things we're doing, when they come back and the emergency managers talk about that, we take those to our individual silos and we figure out what we need to be doing to contribute to that. And so our collaboration in this county probably puts us in a better state than many areas, but we've seen it happen. We saw it happen here. And the response was good. I would tell you that when you're dealing with a response like they have in California, that's a 100-year kind of a catastrophe. And so certainly there's going to be some lessons learned, but I think that we're in pretty good stead right now here in Johnson County. So any questions I can answer for you?
Anything for the chief?
Chief, I haven't seen you in a couple months. I want to send a thank you out to your teams. I think other than just community events, I've actually never had to use the fire department before. But in July, I got hit by a car riding my bike in Prairie Village.
Oh, my.
And while I'm laying there on the ground and they're coming, all I can remember thinking was, man, that was quick. I mean, they were there quick. They got me in the ambulance, got me where I needed to be. So that was, I think, the station at 79th.
Station 23 down at 79th?
Yep. But then later that night when I finally got home, they wanted me to wash out my wound. I took it off. I'm not good with blood, passed out. So I got to meet your team at the 63rd Street station.
Yeah, you got several stations that day.
They were quick as well. So please pass along thanks to them.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm happy you had a good experience with us. So, all right. Any other
Thank you,
questions?
chief.
Thank you.
Very valuable information.
Y'all have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Administration and Finance, Nathan?
Thank you, Mayor. You can see in the administration report the topics that were covered at the Administration and Finance Committee meeting that occurred on December 4th. The restrictive declarations conversation, you'll see that tonight we have the resolution on new business. We have started a conversation about the possibility of looking at solar installation here at City Hall as we replace the roof at some point in 2025. The SIM agreement is also on the new business item or agenda for this evening, and the space needs assessment continues. Chief and I will be getting back with the PGAV here in the coming weeks to continue that study moving forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on administration.
Any questions for Nathan? Yes, Kellyanne?
Kelly Busick, Ward 1. Nathan, if you can get funding, are you going to wait until you do the engineering to understand if we can have that kind of weight on top of the building, or we're not going to do it at all? Because I could hardly hear you. I'm sorry.
That'll all be figuring out if the roof can support the weight will not be part of the process as we get ready to replace the roof. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, finance, Nathan?
The finance report is also fairly straightforward. I will just note that for sales tax for 2024, we ended the year at 2.6 million in sales tax revenues. That is across all funds, so that goes, some goes to the CIP fund, some goes to the 2014 sales tax fund, obviously to the general fund. So we received 2.6 when we had budgeted just over 2.3. So that's good news that our sales tax revenues came in above budget. That fact by itself allowed us to make a larger transfer from the general fund into the CIP fund. We had budgeted just over 1.1 million to transfer into the CIP fund for future projects, and we were actually able to make a $1.5 million transfer. So that's, I think, I don't remember what 2024's transfer was, but this is pretty unique that we were able to do that. So those will go to help offset future major mill and overlay projects, major vehicle acquisition, those types of expenses come out of the CIP fund.
That said, that shows that the city of Fairway is in very, very sound financial position. And it's taken everyone's effort for us to be in that position, and I'd like to not only thank the work of the city council, but particularly of staff. They monitor their budgets very, very carefully, and because of that, we were able to have a very, very strong year. So thank you. Any questions for Nathan on finance? Okay, police, chief?
Thanks, Mayor. Last month, a lot more of the same. We had some substantial arrests with methamphetamine. Unfortunately, that's seems like that drug kept popping up last month a lot. We had felon in possession of firearms, and I also want to mention about 10 days ago, we had, and again, this would be on next month's report, but because it is so current, I'd like to mention it at the council meeting today. We backed an outside agency on a subject that had fired a weapon inside a building, apartment complex, left on foot, fired rounds outside of that building, and we responded and quickly assisted with the perimeter. About an hour later, that individual was located. We contacted him along with other officers. He would not comply with the officer's commands. And an outside agency attempted to utilize a taser. And because of heavy clothing, the taser was ineffective. Our officer quickly deployed a less lethal beanbag shotgun that we carry and deployed that weapon. Because of his quick action and training and being able to utilize that very quickly, that individual was taken into custody without serious injury or death. He had the gun in his waistband, and he didn't have the opportunity to get it out. So the officer did an outstanding job. I watched that the next morning, the body cam, the in-car video, and it looked like a training video. So he did an outstanding job. I just want to mention that. I'll mention it again in the next meeting, but that's what we are running into now, more and more, unfortunately. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the chief tonight?
Chief, was that one of our cops?
Yeah,
The individual?
that used the
cop that
beanbag less
intervened?
lethal?
Was
Yes,
he one of ours?
yes.
Great.
Yeah, Lee?
Hey, Chief, I noticed in the incident report that somebody had remote started their vehicle, I guess, in their driveway, and it was stolen. So I
Yeah.
have two questions. One, do you have a recommendation in cold weather about remote starting our cars and whether that's a good idea or not? And two, how easy is it to steal someone's car if it's idling in the driveway?
Well, typically, those don't move, most of those vehicles shouldn't be operable if they're remote started because the keys aren't around the vehicle. There are, however, some makes and models that apparently that does happen on. But again, that vehicle was remote started. There could have been some means in which an individual can operate a remote started vehicle by figuring out a way to do that. But there are some cars that you can do that with. I'd rather not just say that out loud in an
Sure.
open public meeting. I'm sure you can find out if you Google it. But it's pretty uncommon. And a lot of times we're like, are you sure you had,
Right.
and they're like, oh, you're missing the key fob. I wonder where that was. So it's uncommon.
Good, that's good to know.
It's uncommon, but that being said, I think you should always keep an eye on your car.
It's good advice. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, Jenna?
I was going to comment on that one too. I thought about it as I was coming to this meeting. I noticed that we often, when we pull someone over, it turns out they have a warrant from another jurisdiction and we're able to kind of help facilitate that. Is that just Kansas or do we have communications on the other side of state line if somebody has an active warrant in Missouri?
Only if it's extraditable.
Okay. So sometimes that is the case, but often we wouldn't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we would know by running an individual or, perhaps on a license plate or something like that. If there's an active warrant that's a felony warrant or an extraditable warrant, we would know that. But any normal misdemeanor warrants, typically from the Missouri side or outside state lines, no one will extradite on those.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Jerry?
Jerry Williams, Ward 2. I saw in your report that we have several candidates for the last vacancy position. How are we looking there?
Good.
We're close to,
Yeah, we've made some hires, or a hire. We're getting ready to make another offer, and we're moving
so we'll be
forward.
full by then. Okay, thank you.
Isn't that great news?
Yep, there's a new officer out on the street. He's almost out of part of the field training process. And then a new officer is scheduled to start on the 27th.
Anyone else?
Can I say one more thing? I know we're going right into Public Works, but I just wanted to, again, say we say it a lot. I want it to come from the police department. They do an excellent job with our streets. Overall, awesome performance, but they do a phenomenal job with our streets.
I think we
Snow
will all
removal.
second that,
Right.
and third it and fourth it, and, yes.
Thank you.
But thank you for mentioning it, Chief. Public Works, Nathan, are you going to pick that up?
I'm happy to answer any questions, but we'll let the report stand as submitted.
Any questions? Okay. And Parks and Rec, Bryce?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll echo what Chief said with Public Works. They cleared out the pool house, the Shawnee Indian Mission up here we had 7 rentals this weekend. So if we didn't have them as a resource, we wouldn't be able to have those parties up here. So I sure appreciate that. I'll let my report stand as submitted. I will note that we're working on our summer newsletter already for the summer. So our registration process will open up on March 1st. So get looking for that here pretty soon. Rentals are booming right now. So this place is packed quite a bit with Nerf and gymnastics. And lastly, for the master plan, we're having a meeting we'll hopefully have a meeting on February 4th. I've heard back from everybody except for Dan, and for the first one we had to move it because we're kind of down on our committee members. So February 4th at 5 p.m. is 5 or 6 p.m. So Dan, if you could check that on your 5 or 6 p.m.
Within 2 minutes of your email, I replied yes to the thing. But
Oh, not the
the
first
doodle
one?
poll. Doodle.
The new one?
Yeah, but maybe it's not saving correctly.
Okay.
Not good with technology, I'll admit that.
Okay, well, maybe before you leave today, let's 5 or 6 p.m. on February 4th. We have to have a quorum because we're taking some action on a master plan process. So, other than that, I'm happy to answer some questions.
Mayor,
Questions? Yes.
if I can just add something, just to give you a sense of what Bryce is talking about in terms of the rentals. It was a little after noon today, Bryce came out of his office and said he had just finished processing all of the rental and party requests that had come in over the weekend. So about 4 hours of his time today was spent processing what had just come in since Friday for rentals moving forward. And if you look at our calendar, it's insane how many events and parties we have booked on the weekends, starting Friday nights all the way through Sunday evening. It's one right after the other.
Outstanding. Jenna?
Jenna, Ward 4. Bryce, how is the bathroom holding up? Have people been respecting it? Are we able to get it cleaned and everything like that?
Yeah, as long as we don't have construction going on around the pool, it's much better. But yeah, so far it's going well. Our staff is now cleaning that. We want to make sure that it's clean, and the cleaning company wasn't quite up to the standards that we needed to be out there, so we're cleaning it now. So, but everything so far has been very well received. The signs are up for the restroom, so people should know where to go to the restroom at the park.
Did I understand
you.
you correctly that our staff is cleaning the bathroom?
Yeah, Renee and
Is
Jackson
that
will be.
temporary?
Potentially. So we have the luck of having 90 seasonal employees come during the summer. So for the bulk, 5 months, we'll have them clean it. But then in the off season, we don't have a whole lot of, besides foot traffic to the park. We don't have a whole lot of cleaning to do there. So right now it's just us, and they've asked to take that on because they weren't satisfied with the cleanliness that we were getting.
Okay.
So we've gone through, I think, 5 different cleaners. So if there is one out there that cleans to the to what we expect, I have not found them yet. I'm sorry.
That's too bad. Okay.
One quick, how are we progressing on the landscaping project? Is it done, started?
It is done, yeah.
It's hard to tell with the snow, but it looked like I saw some new sprinkler heads and plants and et cetera.
Yeah, so it actually looked really good. I mean, you can only see the plant heads right now that haven't filled in quite obviously because they've only been planted a month ago, but it looks even better. The park has opened up so much from 62nd Street. You can now look in, you can see in and see like little kids running out too, which is the biggest issue, running out on the street or whatever if they were to run. But we should be seeing the hydrangeas and the native grasses peak out this coming spring and summer. The ground cover will take about a couple of years to get super full, but we'll get a little bit. They have little purple flowers on them too, but I can't wait to see what it looks like in May and June. Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you, Bryce. Monthly reports of the special committees, tree board.
No report.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the public comment for consent agenda items only. I will read those into the record before I ask for public comment. A, approve minutes of the previous regular city council meeting. B, approve claims and appropriations. Ordinance number 1820, December 2024. C, approve agreement between Johnson County and the city of Fairway for a preliminary project study of a stormwater management project known as State Park Road. D, approve agreement between the city of Fairway, Kansas and the city of Roland Park, Kansas for the public improvements of 55th Street from Shawnee Mission Parkway to Rowe Avenue. E, approve agreement between Johnson County, Kansas, the city of Roland Park, Kansas, the city of Westwood, Kansas, and the city of Fairway, Kansas for the public improvement of Mission Road from 47th Street to 53rd Street. F, approve agreement between Johnson County, Kansas, and the city of Fairway, Kansas for a stormwater system renewal project known as Fairway Storm Sewer Rehabilitation and Replacement. G, approve purchase of pool deck furniture from Taylor and Associates, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $36,000. H, approve purchase of the park patron counters from Eco Counter Corp. for an amount not to exceed $10,000. Approve agreement with the cities of Prairie Village, Kansas, and Mission, Kansas for the 2025 Super Pass program. I'd like to clarify item F. At least it's a question that I had, so I will share Nathan's response to me. That particular project is a SMAC project for Buena Vista, Mohawk, and Norwood, the storm boxes. Did you confirm that with Bill?
I wasn't able to confirm that with Chris, but I'm not exactly sure where all of the stormwater work is going to occur, but it's tied to the CIP project. So wherever we're milling and overlaying streets for 2025, if there is stormwater work in various amounts on those sections of street that are being worked on, that stormwater work will take place at the same time. We've budgeted about $360,000 for the stormwater work. We'll get hopefully half that back from the county.
Okay, thank you. All right, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to comment on any of the consent agenda items? Nathan, do you see anyone?
If there is anyone watching via Zoom who'd like to make a public comment about the consent agenda, please use the raise hand feature now. I don't know how I paused it.
I know you said something, but I didn't understand what you said.
Okay, go ahead. No comment.
No one? Okay. I'll close the public comment then for the consent agenda item. These items are determined to be routine enough to be acted on in a single motion. However, this does not preclude discussion. If a council member requests, an item may be removed from the consent agenda for further consideration and separate motions. Does anyone have an item they want removed? All right. I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda items.
Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items A through I.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve consent agenda items A through I. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to new business. Item A is a presentation from Johnson County Wastewater concerning the Belinda Pump Station project. If you'll please identify yourself and your address.
Sure. My name is Alex Zerwinski, Managing Engineer for Johnson County Wastewater. Address is 11811 South Sunset Drive, Suite 2500, Olathe, Kansas, 66061. All right. Well, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Thank you all for letting us present here. So we're here to talk about our Belinda Pump Station project just down the street. I want to thank Basel for helping us set up here for our public outreach and being supportive through this whole process, and for Nathan for help to guide us through the slides here as well. With me, we have representatives from Black & Veatch in the back, along with Bonnie, the project manager, and then Patrick Denning, our assistant chief engineer. And so with that, we'll get into the presentation. So Belinda Pump Station is located just down the street at 5700 Belinda Ave. It's a JCW-owned property. The pump station, which you can see highlighted in the yellow border, it actually dates back to 1947. It was installed, our first pump station, along with the first wastewater treatment facility that we have just down the road in Mission, our Mission Main wastewater treatment facility, also known as the Nelson Complex. In 1968, we expanded that pump station to include a wet weather component. That was to handle additional flow that's above and beyond what the pump station could handle. So that flow would get treated on site and then released to the creek just to the south. And that PEF, peak excess flow treatment facility, or just holding basin for simple terms, that's that orangish color that's just to the south in the front yard of the property. We are in the Brush Creek watershed. Brush Creek is just to the south of the property, as I just mentioned before. The front yard of the property is located in the floodplain floodway. The work that we're doing in the pump station itself is not in the floodplain. We're gonna have our finished floor actually 1.1 feet above the base flood elevation. But the front yard itself will be in the floodplain and floodway. Another thing to note, about this facility is that while it resides here in Fairway, it actually serves 6 different cities in northeast Johnson County. So that'd be Fairway, Mission Hills, Mission Woods, Prairie Village, Roland Park, and Westwood. And overall serves about 40,000 people. Okay, next slide. So if we zoom out a little bit, you can see Belinda Pump Station on the left there, in that kind of Chiefs color, red and gold, red and yellow. And to the west, we've got the Kansas City Country Club, to the east, Mission Hills Country Club, and Brush Creek just to the south. And as we zoom out even more, the picture on the right-hand side, just showing the importance of this pump station. It is a fairly large pump station for us, pumping about 2.5 million gallons of wastewater a day up to the Nelson Treatment Facility, and the dry pump station can pump up to 10.6 million gallons a day. And that hatched area on the right-hand side is the whole service area that eventually flows or gets pumped to the Belinda Pump Station, where then it gets pumped back up to the west to our Nelson Wastewater Treatment Facility. Okay. So there are 3 main drivers to this project I want to talk about. One is renewal and replacement. We have regulatory component, and then we have our integrated plan. For renewal and replacement, we have assets that are beyond their useful life in this facility. The last time we did an upgrade here was about 25 years ago, so it's due for a big upgrade. We're going to be replacing pumps and piping and other process equipment. On the regulatory side, we're going to be enhancing the water quality that's discharged through that wet weather treatment process that I talked about earlier. Through that process, we add chlorine to disinfect the water that goes through that holding tank. Chlorine is a very good disinfectant. It's low cost. It does a really good job. But then at the end of the process, that water still has that chlorine residual. So part of this regulatory component to this that the state wants us to do is to remove that chlorine residual by adding another chemical at the end of that treatment process. Chlorine, while great for disinfection, is not great for aquatic life. So by removing that chlorine at the end of the process, it's going to help enhance Brush Creek for this purpose. And lastly, for our integrated plan, we have a 25-year, $2.9 billion integrated plan that lays out several capital projects over the next 25 years. And the state's identified this particular project for that regulatory component as a big driver for getting this project done quickly. And we have a target 2028 completion goal in negotiation with the state. So that's why we're trying to move this project through pretty quickly, but at a good pace. Okay, next slide. So this slide shows the major improvements, the site improvements, as well as the process improvements that you'll see from the pump station. This slide comes from the poster boards that we had here at our public outreach meeting, which was hosted in this facility on September 11th, 2024. And these poster boards, this one in addition to the other ones we had at that event, are up on our project website, which will be on the slide in a couple slides ahead of this one. So the middle of this site in brown, that's the existing dry weather pump station that we have. Just to the south of that is in green, the holding basin, and then the residence to the west and the north. One of the things we wanted to do in that area was expand the building for the new processes going in. We need a new electric room and a new chemical room. And that's getting expanded to the southeast and southwest, which you can see in a light blue on that figure. One of the big reasons why we wanted to push that out to the front yard was to preserve that buffer and the backyard space near the residents in the backyard. We know, it's a very tight area back there, and we want to try to maintain as much space as we can, so we want to push the new improvements out to the front towards the roads. We're also going to be replacing the roof on the whole entire structure, driveway expansions, access walkways, HVAC plumbing, different things to bring that building back up to code, as well as we have a small storm drain improvement on the southeast side on Belinda Ave, and some small landscaping that we're doing. In addition to the process improvements that we have the influence screens that are going to be replaced inside the buildings. That removes the debris before it gets to the pumps in the facility. Dry weather pump replacement, wet weather pump replacement, all the things we need to keep making sure that we can keep treating flow 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because no matter what, the facility has to operate. We'll have chemical addition and then an engine generator for backup power when needed. Okay? This also came from our public outreach meeting, a 30% design showing a rendering of what the facility is going to look like after the improvements are done. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have what the existing pump station looks like, and then on the right side, what the proposed pump station is going to look like with 3D renderings. So you can see, you know, the goal is to make the facility, the pump station, match what it currently looks like. We have to expand the facility, but we want to continue to match that colonial cottage look, give it that same look and curb appeal that the residents have and see when driving down the road. So we are past 30%. It still looks pretty much the same. We have some slight tweaks here and there, but overall, the same look and feel. Okay, next slide, please. As I mentioned before, we had our public outreach here on September 11th. I thought it was very successful. It was great to see 16 residents or 16 attendees show up. You know, everyone was very engaged, really interested in hearing what we had to say about the pump station, so I thought it went really well. A lot of the comments we received were about the aesthetics of it, you know, dormers matching the windows below, shutters, making sure that they match the size of the window, just kind of architectural features to make sure the building, you know, looks accurate for an actual facility, actual type of colonial cottage. We'll protect the trees that we have there along the fence line. Also, comments about walkers down State Park Road and Blinder Ave. We've noted that there's plenty of people that do their exercise along the roads, and we've noted that in the contract documents, so the contractor will be aware that residents are out there and will take precautions to be careful when driving down the road. From the feedback cards that we received, you know, overall, again, positive. I just want to highlight some of the additional comments. People said that the project has been needed. That was a well-done presentation. Post the presentation on the website, which is actually at the bottom of this slide, hidden by the menu bar at the bottom. But the project website is, yeah, thanks, there you go, jcwprogram.com/Belinder. So on there, if you go there, all the slides that we had at that public outreach meeting can be found on that project website. And then again, talking about the people that walk along State Park Road and Blinder Ave, so we're going to make sure that the contractor is fully aware of that and that we'll have provisions in place to make sure people are driving slow and safe and protecting the safety of the public. Okay, next slide, please. And lastly, I'll just talk a little bit about the schedule of this project. So we are currently at about 60% design. We're going to be getting closer to 90% design here coming up in March, and then we'll have the project ready to go out on the street for bid in May. And then we'll have our bidding process and hoping to get a notice to proceed, get the contractor started in September of this year. And then it's a 28-month construction period, which takes us to the beginning of 2028. So it is a fairly long construction period. Not all that time is going to be spent in construction, but the contractor is going to have to stage and phase the work that they're doing at that point in time. But there's a lot of maintaining operations during construction that's going to be pretty tricky with this project, just because we have to keep the flow pumping and moving while the contractor is getting in there and doing the work. And overall, for total project cost, the estimated cost for this from a total project basis, design and construction, is between the $22 to $25 million range. And with that, I think next slide, I think on to any questions you all may have.
Well, I can speak on at least on behalf of the three of us that live in that ward. I have not heard any complaints. Have either of you? So you did a good job.
Well, thank you very much.
For your presentation, because our residents don't hesitate to share their thoughts with us. And so hearing no complaints means that things went really well. And I don't think we have any concerns.
Okay.
And so we appreciate your approach very, very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and appreciate you guys' partnership. You know, we have the same stakeholders and want to make sure that we're a good neighbor. You know, treating this flow and providing a good service for everybody. And it's a good testament to the work that the design team's been doing as well with Black and Beach. So, yeah, really appreciate the time and effort.
Any questions?
I'll have one.
Yes, Joe?
I'm always thinking about the dollars, so what's the impact on an individual homeowner?
This is all part of our RCIP program as well. So part of that long-term 25-year plan, that's taking, it's $2.9 billion that we've spread out over 25 years. So we have many different capital projects as well as our operating costs that a different team looks at. And the ultimate goal is to make sure that we're not charging any more than a 5% increase in rates year over year. And so that's essentially all the capital projects rolled up together. When we take a look at that and put that into the financial model, we're making sure that the rates do not go up more than 5% a year.
Yes, Jenna?
Actually, yeah, I did have a question. You mentioned there was a regulatory driver, and I presume that's state as opposed to federal.
Yes.
And is there any federal, just because I've heard some things about chlorine in the news, are we concerned that something is going to change? And have you thought about how that would impact the project?
No, and because I should say, it is kind of a combination of the federal and the state. It's something that the EPA is requiring, and so then they pass that requirement to the state, and then the state puts that requirement on us. And part of our integrated plan, not only from the capital side that helps us lay out that 25-year plan, we also negotiate these projects with the state, so that way, when we put these projects into the plan, we're agreeing with Kansas Department of Health and Environment that this is the project, this is what it's going to look like, and this is when we're going to do it. And once we've negotiated that with them, then we agree to move forward. And so, they get to look at that whole plan that we have. And it's flexible and adaptive, so that way there could be changes, but, there shouldn't be any surprises coming in where they say, hey, now we want you to add something else just downstream of that as well.
David?
Yeah, this is probably way too technical for all of us tonight, but you touched on the challenging question of how do we keep it working while we're doing the fixing. Is there going to be anything on the website that'll be understandable to non-engineers, which is everybody but Dan on the council?
Yes.
And our residents?
It will be a challenge. With John and Barry back there from Black and Beach, we've had some discussions on what we call MOPO, maintenance of plant operations. And, at some point when the contractor's ready, they're gonna have to stage and have bypass pumps set up. And we do have a slide that talks about that and the other things that the residents can expect during construction, like noise, odors, lights, traffic, the typical things that we get questions on during a construction project. So bypass pumping is gonna be one of those critical things that the contractor is gonna need to have on the site. So we'll have bypass pumps set up, they'll have noise suppression on them, so that way it meets, I forget the exact decibel level, maybe 90, 95 at a certain feet from the bypass pumps. And that'll be in the front yard. And they'll need to have that before they start to demolish some of the equipment inside the building, because we need to replace the dry weather pumps, the piping, and then even the superstructure around it. To bring a old building like that up to code requires a pretty substantial amount of work. That also requires a metal structure, metal frame on the inside of the building to help support the load of the walls. And we don't want our operators inside that building when that work's gonna be happening, because it's just not gonna be a safe environment. So during that time, like I said, bypass pumps in the front yard, and that could be a couple months while they're doing that, if not a little bit more. Just that way the contractor can get the work done and then turn it back over to us, so that way we can safely get in there and start operating the facility. But it's a good idea. We'll make sure to post more about that as we learn more from the contractor.
You mentioned that this is the first pump station in the jurisdiction. Is this the first to be rehabbed like this, or have you done other rehabs where they've done the rerouting and the backup pumping?
This one is, we've done other pump stations that have had backup pumping, so that is pretty typical, just because if you have to get in there and work on your main workhorses, you need to have backup pumps in place. And those can be, temporary, where you phase things over, or sometimes it is a full scale. You set this up and give the whole pump station to the contractor so they can get to work, do it quickly, and then turn it over and switch it back. Bypass pumping is very expensive, so it's in our interest, it's in the contractor's interest to get that done as quickly as possible. But we have done many other pump stations with bypass pumps set up. Yeah.
It was probably, it's probably a year and a half ago, you guys had bypass pumps at that pump station for an extended period of time.
We did.
And so maybe some more will be there, but I mean, it'd be very similar looking to that, correct?
That is true, yeah. We had bypass pumps set up in the front yard. I think that was, big rainstorms where the basement had flooded just because we're at a very low point, right near the Brush Creek and the floodplain floodway. And basement flooded, and then we couldn't get those wet weather pumps to operate, so we had to pump that liquid over to that holding basin underground. So the bypass pumps were set up in the front yard for a little while. Patrick, do you remember how long that was? They were there for a couple months. They weren't running the whole time. They were there for a couple months, just in that case as a backup standby in case we needed them while we restore power. But in this case, we'll have them, and the contractor can use them. Really depend on how they set up their construction and their sequencing.
One item I guess I wanted to ask a bigger picture question. You mentioned the front yard was in the floodplain.
Correct, yep.
If it wasn't, would there be anything, is that holding your design back at all, limiting what you can or can't do on that site, or are you just able to work around it?
Yeah, we're able to work around it. Because that underground tank takes up a substantial amount of that front yard. And we're taking our new expansions of the building pretty much right up to that underground storage tank. And there's not much room in that grassy area aside that we can use. There's a little bit of green space on the east-hand side of that grassy area. But we have utility lines going through there. We're gonna be planting trees in that area where we can. So, yeah, so really the floodplain, floodway, I don't think is really affecting design too much in this case.
Anyone else? Yes, Lee?
So I'd like to echo what the mayor said about the meeting in September. It was fantastic. Your team did a really nice job. My question is, are there any substantive changes to the plan since then? And if not, you mentioned noise abatement. You also included odor abatement as part of the discussion, as I remember, and you weren't planning on parking construction vehicles in the street.
correct.
Is that all still accurate?
That is all still accurate, yes. We're gonna have the contractor shuttle in, so no parking on State Park Road, no parking on Blinder Ave. Storage for materials, equipment, that's all gonna have to be off-site, so they'll have to bring that in there when they need it. You know, that storage tank in the front yard, they'll have to be careful with what kind of large equipment they set on it, because it's not really rated for heavy equipment and heavy, storing a lot of materials on top of it. So we're trying to make sure that that site is kept clear. You will probably see the contractor's office, like a trailer set up, the contractor, the superintendent, the key people, you'll probably see vehicles in there. But for the laborers, the staff that would be working on the construction project, the contractor will have to work to shuttle them in, and they'll have to work with partners outside the area that have parking lots where they have storage space, so that way they can have people park there and bring them in. Substantial changes to the pump station, nothing really. The one picture that has that skylight on the roof, that one is one area that we've been working on, tweaking a little bit, just because as we got into the details, if you go back, yep, yeah, it was good right there. So on the pictures on the right-hand side, in the middle, behind the first building, you can kind of see something that's a little bit different colored in the roof. That's the skylight. And the purpose for that was to provide an access point to remove the bar screens that are, they remove that debris and keep it from getting to the pumps, make sure the pumps can continue to work and pump as needed. As we got into the architectural design of it, the skylight wasn't directly lined up with where the screens were. So now a different style of architectural roofing has been put into place, where you're gonna have two steeper slopes from either side and then more of a flat removable part on top. And that flat part on top won't be able to be seen. All you'll see is the steep slopes from the side. Yeah, so those are the only substantial things I can think of.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Well,
Very
thank you very much.
informative. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, under new business, item B, consider authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement regarding the Shawnee Indian Mission. Nathan?
Thank you, Mayor. We mentioned this briefly at the Administration and Finance Committee meeting in December. This is really, it's not as complicated as one might think. We're really restating a lot of the things that we've already committed to since 2016 when we began the daily operations. The substantial change here is that the city used to have an agreement with the Historical Society and had a separate agreement with the Shawnee Indian Mission Foundation. This document combines all three parties into one agreement, and then it does lay out some of the work that we've already done in terms of engagement and vision for the site, which wasn't necessarily included in the 2016 agreement. So it really, this does not commit the city to anything more than what we're currently doing. It identifies what we are doing and how we're managing the site and moving forward. So we've had a little bit of delay just in terms of getting legal review from the Historical Society. We should, I was told on Friday, we should have their comments back early this week, but we don't anticipate there to be any substantive changes, which is why the request for the motion is to allow for those as the mayor would execute the agreement based on a final review of our legal team on this.
Discussion from council or questions? Anything? Oh,
I was going to say,
Jenna?
I really like section 11, vision and stakeholder engagement. I could tell that was really meaningfully created, and I'm hopeful that'll stay in the final version. Thank you.
I'd call Nathan, I thought the document itself was educational because I had no idea that the original 22 tribes had diversified out to 80 and how many irons in the fire there are to try to gain engagement and secure engagement. So it's been a lot of work and will continue to be a lot of work, and you and the mayor should be commended for all the work that you've
Well,
done.
thank you, David. I think this agreement for all three of the entities will increase greatly our ability to reach our goal of providing a facility that will share the story of all the tribes that want to share their story. That is primarily the responsibility of the Historical Society, and I think by combining this into one agreement, that will come to fruition. I hope so.
Well done.
Thank you. Okay, I will open that to public comment. If there is anyone in the audience that would like to comment on item B concerning the Shawnee Indian Mission. Nathan, anyone online? Seeing nothing, no one from the audience, I would ask for a motion, please.
Mayor, I move that we authorize you to execute an agreement regarding the Shawnee Indian Mission, the Kansas State Historical Society, and the foundation, with the terms to be as finally approved by our legal staff.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that I receive the authorization to execute an agreement regarding the Shawnee Indian Mission. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Item C, consider Resolution 2025A, a resolution regarding the removal of discriminatory restrictive covenants from property documents in the city of Fairway, Kansas, and acknowledging accomplishments that have already occurred. Nathan?
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, this has been an ongoing conversation for the Administration and Finance Committee, and And with the completion of the Fields and HOA filing their amendment for their declaration of restrictions, the Administration and Finance Committee, Committee of the Whole, was looking at ways to properly acknowledge what has transpired. And so you may have seen the article in the Fairway, Focus on Fairway newsletter, and this is the follow-up to that. The one thing I will add is in my phone call earlier today with Councilman Watkins, we did add to the first whereas, we added religions to the list of, we mentioned races, ethnicities, national origins, so we added religions to that as well. And so that is in the final signed copy that the mayor will execute later this evening. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Nathan? Jerry?
No questions for Nathan, other than to say thank you. Nathan did an outstanding job in capturing the discussion that we had at our meeting. And I must say that when I read the resolution after kind of making minor changes, it had the same impact on me when I read the documents from my closing where it said no Negroes allowed. So the words matter, and it made me so proud that this council took the time, had the discussion, and put the resolution in place. It's an acknowledgement of past wrongs, no finger pointing in this at all, just an acknowledgement. And it's important for us to support righting wrongs of the past. So I was very proud. Again, my wife had a tear again in reading that, but it made me feel good that she and others in the neighborhood thought that we as a council were really focused on good work. So thank you for that.
Anyone else? All right, I'll open it for public comment. Anyone in the audience like to comment on the resolution 2025A? Nathan? All right, and no one that's present here, so I will close public comment and entertain a motion concerning this resolution.
Mayor, I move that we approve the resolution regarding the removal of discriminatory restrictive covenants from property documents in the city of Fairway, Kansas, and acknowledging accomplishments that have already occurred.
With the addition of religions. May I add that? Okay. All right, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Okay, I am going to depart from the agenda for a few minutes and give Jenna the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the good news is I'm staying in Fairway, but the sad news is, as I will be half a block outside of Ward 4, I must now resign my seat in City Council. Just wanted to say thank you, Mayor, for all the wisdom you've imparted, all of my colleagues, Tanya, as the other Ward 4 rep, to all the staff. You've been awesome. I want to get emotional. It's been a good 5 years. I've learned a lot. I've been honored to do it. And I'm still in Fairway. So I'll miss everybody. In Ward 2. In Ward 2, so come to you guys with any suggestions.
So pay attention.
I thought you were saying October, like calling me out.
No. I'm very excited about my new representation. Yeah. That's it. Thank you.
Jenna, on behalf of the governing body, thank you for your years of service. We've enjoyed working with you, and you have brought many perspectives to the governing body and considerations that have been very valuable, and we really, really appreciate that.
You're here.
We will miss you, but we know where to find you, and so you will not be forgotten. I have a gift for you. Okay. The last item on the agenda, under new business, item D, considered mayoral appointment to the Parks and Rec Committee. Okay, you're going to have to stay, Jenna. We've had a resignation of our, the resident that is on the Parks and Rec Committee, and Zach is resigning due to personal reasons. He does not, he regrets that he does not have the time to give the full attention that he needs to the committee, so he has resigned, opening a position for a new resident on the committee. And Jenna has expressed an interest to remain on that committee. So I would like to appoint her as a resident on the Parks and Rec Committee, if you guys will approve. Is there a motion?
Is it second?
Yay. All right. We'll see you on February 4th. Yeah, Dan responds. Okay, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Jenna, for continuing to serve Fairway. All right, item 8, governing body comment. During this time, members of the governing body will be given the opportunity to speak about matters related to the city. No formal action will be taken during this time. Does anyone have anything they'd like to comment on? Dan?
I guess it's a comment, but it's a question. But procedurally, to fill Jenna's chair, does that look a lot like Tom a couple years ago?
It would, yes. So, yeah, actually, we have an email ready to go out tomorrow and a Facebook post where we will probably accept applications for those who are interested for the next 2 weeks. And then generally what would occur is if we have more than 2, then the mayor, the remaining ward rep, and the council president, who just resigned, would normally be part of those interviews. So if we have more than 2, the mayor and Tanya would narrow it down to 2 candidates, and then they would both appear at the February city council meeting to be interviewed by the full council, and then the council will take a vote right there on the spot. Whomever is selected by the council would immediately ascend to their chair for Ward 4. So the goal is to get it filled as quickly as possible.
Thank you. And would we be then looking for a new council president?
So,
At February?
following the seating of the new Ward 4 rep, probably the last agenda item under new business for February would be the election of a new council president.
Any other questions?
I did it just, I think it can't, Chief, you mentioned it, but I don't think it can be said enough. It's too bad Bill isn't here. Is he still down in Florida? When I called him during the storm and he answered, well, you know, I'm in Florida.
No comment.
So I want to apologize on the record for that. I actually had a resident called who was just watching cars slide down Howe, and I said, well, they'll get there, be patient. And sure enough, they did, and they get to every other street, and then they come back because the snow kept coming, and they got to every street again. And they just did a fantastic job. So our Public Works Department should be commended, because as always, the storm didn't happen between 9 and 5 on a regular workday. And so they're out long hours on the weekend, and it really is amazing that you get up and you drive through Fairway and you get around just fine, and you hit the state line and you're praying. So kudos to our Public Works team.
Any other comments?
Hey, Mayor.
Again, I wish Bill was here. I mean, I didn't necessarily want to say it while Johnson County Wastewater is in the room, but those grants he's getting, the SMAC dollars, I mean, that is a substantial, if we had to come up with that money, it would substantially change our budgets.
Yes, it would.
So,
Yes,
I mean,
it
he's
would.
doing a phenomenal job getting those funds.
Yes, he is. Definitely. Bryce?
Mayor, throw back to the new potential council member. Is it my understanding that they would automatically go onto my committee then to fill that? I'm asking, we're going to have a long year, so, with
Yes.
lots of meetings, so I'm just,
Yes.
is that right?
The committee appointments are for 2 years. So they would fill the remaining
Okay,
part of Jenna's second year
okay,
on that committee.
perfect.
So I won't steal that person from you. And put
I
them
appreciate
somewhere
that.
else.
Lots of work to do.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Now I will open the floor for public comment for items not listed on the agenda. Anyone have anything? Nathan? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Oh, it's unanimous. We're adjourned.